Most of us are regulars, but just in case, outlines on the corner of the table are the ones for tonight. We're going to actually spend more time in chapters 27, 28, so we'll be reading that a little bit later. Very brief introduction, and then we'll kind of go through some things. Obviously, there's several different things you could choose, but the one central idea tonight is that I want us just to notice what happens when mothers and fathers have favorites to the point that Rebekah schemes to help Jacob receive the blessing. And I really never noticed this. She never ever gets to see him again. He's gone for 20 years, and she dies before he gets back. And I want us to describe how God's, and I put the word plans, and there's so many other words, providence, God's, but we'll just stick with a simple word, God's plans work out sometimes in spite of human shortcomings. The background to the birth and the conflict between the two brothers, this is earlier. So just some highlights moving down. Genesis 25 and 21. Isaac prayed for his wife. The Lord granted his prayer. The children struggled together within her, and she inquired of the Lord. And this is always very interesting when, yes, she has been barren for, and I think it's 20 years. And at this point, then she feels this struggle, and obviously not having, is the word sonograms? Etc. I don't know that she would know that there's twins, but she just she just feels this conflict going on within her. And so she goes to the Lord, and he says, 25:23, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you. From birth shall be divided, one shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. If you notice this, and here's virtually an entire lesson on its own, the same thing happened from the Garden of Eden. And yes, because of the jealousy, the middle brother is killed, but the spiritual blessing comes down through Seth. Ishmael helped me, I think in my memory, Ishmael's like 13 years old when Isaac's born. And yet the younger is the son of promise. And what's coming is that, and again, what an irony, and again, God working things out. I just cannot, ladies, I'm not on your side at all in terms of understanding, okay? But I can hardly grasp 2 sisters being married to the same man. That's a recipe for everything that can possibly go wrong to go wrong. And then we bring 2 other girls in so that we can make sure that we keep ahead on the count for having kids. And the 12 tribes of Israel are born out of the jealousy and rivalry of 2 sisters. And when you hear this term, God's going to change his name a little bit later from Jacob to Israel, he who wrestles with God. And the wrestling that goes on, first of all, within her womb with these 2 boys, and then supplanter or heel grabber is born, and true to his name, he does that from the very beginning. And the foundation of the whole nation of Israel is one of struggle and conflict and jealousy and retribution from day one. And God is going to work his plans out in spite of human shortcomings. So the birth is given, the first. He came out red, his body like a hairy cloak. So they called him Esau. Afterwards, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel. His name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when he bore them. So if you notice, Esau, and I just put the word hairy, he's the father of the Edomites. And Edom is going to sound like the Hebrew word for red. So as you go through the rest of the Old Testament, we're going to come across the Edomites. They live way up in the hills. Obadiah is written to the Edomites. It says, yes, you live up in the hills, but I'm going to bring you down, and predicts their final end. And the other thing I always think about is that when you look at the first readers of Genesis through Deuteronomy, they have been in Egypt for 400 years. One count is 430. They don't know who all their neighbors are when they go back into the promised land. And so all of these stories that we're reading about, it's like, oh, so these are, can I use the term second cousins? You know what I'm trying to say? Here's this family. And then, oh, the Moabites, oh, this comes from Lot and one of his daughters. And so by reading this part of Genesis, it's kind of like 400 years later, they're kind of got to go, oh, okay, so that's who they are. That's how these got in this particular place. And so this is going to happen down the road. Jacob, he who takes by the heel, he who cheats, Brother McCord just called him heel grabber. And how ironic, the boys are born, and what happens as the birth takes place, and he is grabbing his brother's heel. It just continues on. So 25-27, Esau is a skillful hunter, a man of the field. Jacob was a quiet man dwelling in tents. But here's something that I want us just to kind of peg, and we'll come back. What happens in a family when the father loves one child and the mother loves another? And one of the things that we're going to see is that families passed down through the generations more than the color of hair and the color of eyes. And it all starts with, oh, she's my sister, yeah, she's my sister. And now we're going to have this rivalry that is fostered, if you please, by the favoritism of mom and dad. One son is going to spend 20 years in exile because of this. And we're going to come to the next generation, and the brothers are talking about, well, let's just kill him. And watch how this is going to be passed down through the generations, this sense of intergenerational conflict. But Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So I just want to do a very brief thing, and then we're going to start reading. When you look at the hints that Moses gives us about the family dynamics, here is this family. Mom and dad choose favorites. But I want you to notice this. God's will is going to be done in spite of human weaknesses. And just some quick examples. Pharaoh hardened his heart. And there's a number of times where God hardened his heart, but Pharaoh hardened his heart. This is my perception, and feel free to differ, or feel free just to think it through. I think there are cases where God puts a person in a position that they are able to act within their own free will to accomplish God's purposes and God's will without knowing that they're doing it, just because of the nature of who they are. And with the pride, and you stop and think, are we going to lose the financial benefit of all this numerous slaves that we've got and everything else? And it looks, oh, that's a terrible plague. But we just can't lose them. And by the nature of who he was, he helps facilitate and bring about God's will. This is one that's coming up if you're in Matthew in the class on Sunday morning. But notice this, Judas is described as a thief. John 12:6. He didn't care about the poor, but because he was a thief and in charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put in. So when we come to Matthew, notice this, we're going to have prophecies all the way back 500 years about the 30 pieces of silver. And expressions like this are going to be made in prophecy much earlier, but notice what happens. After the expensive ointment was wasted, we're in Matthew 26, on Jesus, and this is what I think, Judas couldn't get his cut from the perfume. So his complaint about, oh, what a waste, this could have been sold and the money given to the poor, I think, yes, and some of this could have ended up in my own pocket, is where he's coming from, because that's what John tells us that he did. And notice this, the word then in the text in Matthew, having lost the money from the wasted perfume from his point of view, then he goes out and makes the deal to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Did God force him to do that? No. But I think through the providence of God, God puts people in situations that they're able to choose by their own nature to do things that fulfill and accomplish the will of God without ever violating their own free will. Here's a positive one, and you may or may not have noticed this. Cyrus, just real quick, a couple of things. The new Neo-Assyrian Assyrian Empire is going to start in the 900s, and the Assyrians are going to be defeated by the Babylonians first in 612 at Carchemish, and then finally just wiped out in 606. And then the Persians, the Babylonians 606, the Persians conquer the Babylonians in 539. Okay? This is just world history in a scope, and this is what's going on throughout the Middle East. But notice this, there's one called Cyrus, and he is going to reverse the Assyrians. And again, just for memory, all of those kingdoms are in alphabetical order. The Assyrians are first, Babylonians come next, Medes and Persians come next. The first two had a take people away from their homelands, make them exiles and captives. The Persians had a totally different policy. Theirs was, go home, pay your taxes, keep your nose clean, and send everybody back. And so notice what's going to take place. 150 years earlier, Isaiah is going to prophesy and refer to Cyrus 150 years before he's born. This to me is one of those amazing prophecies in the Old Testament. Isaiah 44:28. And listen carefully. Who says of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, he will fulfill my purpose, saying of Jerusalem, she shall be built, and of the temple your foundation shall be laid. And you'll see why some skeptical Old Testament scholars said this has to be written after Cyrus was born. No. God could prophesy through the prophet who doesn't know who he is. It's 150 years before he's born. He gives him by name. He says, this is what is going to happen. 45:1, I've grasped his right hand to subdue nations. 45:4, for the sake of my servant Jacob and Israel my chosen, I've called you by name. You do not know me, but I am the Lord, there is no other, and besides me there's no God. I equip you, though you do not know me. And so what's going to take place is that in the city of Jerusalem, twice, and this is on the far left-hand side, Jeremiah 25:11 and 12, and Jeremiah 29:10, Jeremiah says, the people are going to be in captivity for 70 years. Okay? The city's being surrounded. They're under desperate stress and trouble. The city's going to be captured 3 times. This is actually the 3rd time. But through the spirit of inspiration, our prophet says 70 years. So Jerusalem is first conquered in 606. This is by the Babylonians. And then Cyrus takes over in 539, and in 536, he just says within 3 years, go home. Well, guess what? If you subtract 536 from 606, what do you get? 70 years. Cyrus has no idea that he's fulfilling God's will. But God has prophesied, this is what's going to take place, this is what's going to happen. And again, he works through an individual's life doing the things that he's normally going to do without himself being aware, oh, I'm fulfilling a prophecy that was made all these years before. The other thing that's really interesting to me is that the Babylonians destroy the temple in 586. Haggai and Zechariah come back and rebuild the temple, and the temple's completed in 516. Guess what? From the time it is destroyed until it is rebuilt, both the people who come back and then the rebuilding of the temple, both are 70 years. I can't be convinced that's an accident. And so here is God working with people who aren't even within Judaism to accomplish his will. And so when we're looking at the family of the patriarchs, we're going to have an extensive read, a few comments, and then we'll have some things that we close up with. But here's 27:1. Isaac is old, his eyes are dim. He called Esau the older brother and said, my son, and he said, here I am. I'm old, I don't know the day of my death. Take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, go out to the field, hunt game for me, prepare for me delicious food, such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die. Now just a quick comment, what has Esau already surrendered at this point? He's already surrendered his birthright. He traded his birthright for a bowl of stew, pottage, or whatever it was. And in spite of that, the father, because this is his favorite, then is asking him to go out, hunt the game, and we're going to bless you in spite of what has already happened between you and your brother previously. But, Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to his son. So when Esau went to the field to hunt for game, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I heard your father speak to your brother, and here goes all the things. I will bless you. Verse 8, obey my voice as I command you. Go to the flock, bring me 2 young goats so that I may prepare them for delicious food. You will bring it to your father to eat so that he will bless you. But, sorry, I just still have to, I hear heel grabber when I see his name in a place like this. Heel grabber says to his mother, behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man and I'm smooth. Perhaps my father will feel me and will be mocking him and bring a curse upon me and not a blessing. And mom says, don't worry. Let the curse be on me. You just obey my voice and bring them to me. Can I use the word conniving? And everybody okay with what's going on? He went and took them, brought them to his mother. She prepared the delicious food. She took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which were with her in the house. She put them on Jacob. And this always amazes me. She took the skins of 2 young goats, put on his hands, on the smooth part of his neck, and the delicious food and bread which she prepared. He went into his father and he says, oh, here I am. Who are you? Well, I am Esau, he's just a big lie. I am Esau, your firstborn. I've done as you told me. Now set up and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me. But Isaac said to his son, how is it that you have found it so quickly? Oh, and what a whopper. The Lord your God granted me success. Well, come near that I may feel you, son, so I can know you're really my son. He went near, and his father felt of him and said, the voice is Jacob's, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed them, and he said, are you really my son? He said, I am. Bring it near that I may eat the game and bless you. And he brought it, and he ate it and brought it with wine and drank. Now, let me just do this real quick because this is painful. What's that thing when they do the heart thing where they stick the stuff on you and run a test?
EKG.
Okay. Depending upon how much hair you have on your body, that can be an excruciating test.
That's truly.
It's kind of like when that's finished, I just say, thank you, Lord, I've lived to see another day. And when they put those things on, I think, oh, this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt. It's hard to imagine a guy that's so hairy that you feel of goat skins and think you're feeling of your own son. I mean, he is the outdoorsman type guy. And then here's the smooth, quiet, gentle one. And the fact that you'd put skins on you to duplicate. And blind people have a really good sense of hearing and touch. And the fact that we can deceive an old blind man, he must have just been one hairy guy. And that's what it says from his birth. I'm glad he didn't have any EKGs.
Dan,
Yes.
one thing that's interesting to me is Jacob and Esau are between 75 and 80 years old when this is occurring.
Yes.
And Rebecca is probably 110, something like that. I mean, I think usually in your mind's eye, you think, he's maybe 18 years old and,
Yeah.
Mom's coaching him up. He's a 80-year-old man.
Yeah. I just shudder going through this. So, come near and kiss me. He smelt the smell of the garments. Again, that's why Mom put him on him. Smell like, can I say, he can smell like the outdoors. And may God, and look at the blessing. As the smell of the field, the Lord has blessed, the dew of heaven, the fatness of the earth, plenty of grain and wine. People will serve you, nations will bow down. Be Lord over your brothers. May your mother's sons bow down to you. Curse everyone who curses you, and bless the one who bless you. So when you go to the next page, 2730, let's skip a little bit, but just kind of go through this. Esau comes back. He is indignant, as he should be. Isaac starts trembling because he begins to realize he has been deceived. And you see in verse 35, your brother came deceitfully. Oh, isn't his name correct? He's Jacob, again, supplanter, heel grabber. He has cheated me these 2 times. He took away first the birthright, and now is the blessing. And then he's begging his father, don't you have a blessing for me? And so compared to the first one, this is very small in comparison. But away from the fatness of the earth, away from the dew of heaven, by the sword you will live, you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you'll break his yoke from your neck. Now here's the consequence. Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father blessed him. I'm not agreeing with him, but I can empathize with why he feels so angry. It's like, I had just grown up with this brother who's a cheat, and he's deceived me and took all of the rightful blessings of being the firstborn. The days of mourning for my father are approaching, then I will kill my brother Jacob. And Rebekah's going to hear this, and she says in 43, obey my voice, flee to Laban, my brother in Haran. And notice, her thought is, well, you just have to stay there for a while until your brother's fury turns away. And when he forgets what you have done to him, I'll send and bring you back from here. Why should I be bereft? Why should I lose both of you in one day? And then here's a very important point. Rebekah said, I loathe my life because of the Hittite women that Esau has married. And the excuse to Isaac, if Jacob marries one of these Hittite women, one of the women of the land, what good will my life be? So, 28, Isaac calls Jacob, blesses him. Do not take a wife from the local Canaanites. Go back to our father's house. And this term in verse 3, God Almighty, and we're going to come across this term, El Shaddai, the God who's strong, the God who's mighty, will bless you, will make you fruitful and multiply you. May he give the blessing of Abraham to your offspring, that you'll take possession of the land that God gave to Abraham. And so Isaac sent Jacob away. And like I said, I'd never really noticed this. Rebekah, the mom, is going to die before Jacob comes back. So she succeeded in tricking her husband. She succeeded in getting her favorite son the blessing. But a part of the consequences of what happened is that also she never sees him again until she dies. So 28:6, he sent him away. Do not take a wife from here. Jacob obeyed the voice. And we'll list these a little bit later. The wives that are there, there's even some discrepancy on the wives. 5 different ones are listed. We're going to give 4 of them in a little bit. And this is, again, is on Esau's side. And same type thing. You're developing a family with 4, possibly 5 different wives. And I just kind of hold my head and think, I just hardly can imagine. So we're in 28:10. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran, so he's headed north. There's a highway right up through the middle of ancient Israel. He came to, highway, you know what I'm trying to say, a pathway, a roadway. He came to a certain place, and he stayed there that night because the sun had set. And this is one of these amazing events in this part of Genesis. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, the God of Isaac. And notice, we have the family relationships, the land on which you lie I will give to your offspring, and your offspring will be like the dust of the earth and will be spread abroad to the west, the east, the north, and the south. And in your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. This promise started, first of all, in Genesis 12, verses 1 through 3, repeated about 4 times to Abraham, repeated to Isaac. And what I want you to think about is that here's one of the most unscrupulous characters that we've come across, and God is still working to fulfill these promises that he's made all along, and it's being repeated this time to the third of the patriarch. Verse 15, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I've done what I've promised. So just imagine, here you are, a man on the run. Yes, it's by choice, but you're having to run away because of the anger. You're on the journey. I hope he had a garment or something to put his head in. It'd be hard to sleep just on a stone unless you're just really, really tired. But still, has this stone for a pillow. And then to have this kind of dream and to have God speak to you in this way after your unscrupulous behavior is, to me, just an amazing sense of God's mercy and God's grace. And notice what's said. Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I didn't know it. Wouldn't this be an eye-opener? To just wake up and think, wow, I've had a dream within the presence of God. He called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz at first, and he made a vow, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then, yes, the Lord will be my God. And this stone, which I've set up for a pillar, will be God's house. And all that you give me, I will give 1/10 to you. And so Jacob makes some very specific promises. And in reading some different people, the question was, well, is he trying to bargain with God? I don't get the sense as much bargain with God as just, and how do you even say this? Every time people come within the presence of God, there is always an overwhelming sense of the awesomeness of God and our smallness and our littleness in comparison to God. And yet, God is going to keep working with and through Jacob to accomplish his original promises to Abraham and to Isaac. And sometimes God also will work with and through a person's weaknesses in order to bring about his will. And that to me is just always an amazing part of this. So here's some observations of these original first 4 characters. And there's more that can be said, but notice this. All of them are guilty of the grossest sins. Isaac must have known that during Rebekah's pregnancy, ladies, this is not a put down, but I can't imagine her having this vision from God and not telling her husband. I mean, she might not have, but I would assume that she has told him, and Isaac has been told, oh, your wife has received this vision from God, and the younger will serve the older. Well, in spite of that, he has favorites, and he's going to try to fulfill his will in spite of the vision that his wife has previously received. So during the pregnancy, the Lord had told her that the elder, who's Esau, will serve the younger, Jacob, but he deliberately intended to reverse this in the blessing that Isaac thought he was pronouncing upon Esau. I really never thought about that till I read through this, and I thought, here he is, in his own way, having chosen favorites, working against the thing that God has actually said is going to happen. Now Esau, and this is repeated in the New Testament, he has sworn to Jacob that he could have his birthright originally for a bowl of stew, a bowl of pottage. But he accepts his father's offer for the blessing, which came through the birthright. And because of the deception, Esau is biding his time with plans to kill his brother. Now, here are at least 4 of Esau's wives. And if you read through, there's another listing, there's a bit of a variance. But at least, can I say it this way? Here's one option of earlier 3 good reasons why Rebekah doesn't want to have Isaac and these girls around. But notice where they come from. Judith, the daughter of, would you say, Beri, is a Hittite. Baseph, the daughter of Elon, is also a Hittite. Someone help me. Othala Bama is the daughter of Zibeon the Hivite, 36:2, and then one of the daughters is Mahalath, is the daughter of Ishmael. And so it starts with the first 2, and Esau just keeps adding to this. And I'm just doing this with my hands when I read this. It was so off-putting to Isaac and Rebekah, the foreign Canaanite women that he chose to marry. But this is all a part of what term would you use for their family relationships? Dysfunctional? Is that a good term? All part of just this totally dysfunctional thing. And so here the older brother exasperates his word. He just exasperates things and makes it worse, and then keeps adding to other. Mom didn't like the first 2, so let's just double it and make it that much worse. I know they don't have Thanksgiving, but can you imagine having Thanksgiving in this family? I mean, just getting them together in one place is just going to be a total disaster. But Rebekah urges Jacob to deceive Isaac. She says she will accept any curse that Isaac might speak if he discovered his deceit. And like I said, I'd never noticed. Part of what's going to happen is that she will never see her son again in the flesh. And then here's Jacob. He agrees to his mother's plan to deceive his father. He participates in the meal to smell and feel like Isaac. He lies repeatedly to his father about his real identity. So in spite of their unworthiness and sins, God chose Jacob to receive his blessing. And you'll come across this in the New Testament. God chose the younger in preference. And notice, and we'll see this by the time we get to Joseph and his 10 brothers, the 3rd generation, there is a development of the earlier generation's deception. It all starts, first of all, with she's my sister. And every generation, deception gets deeper and broader and more pervasive in the next generations that come along. The blessing. The dew of heaven and the fat of the earth. Dew is essential to vegetation in Canaan, God's blessing. Fat is emblem of prosperity. Leanness is poverty. and people of foreign nations will be subject to Jacob and even his own brethren. And the promise that God first made to Abraham is repeated by Isaac to Jacob. Here's some word plays that are interesting. He calls Jacob because he supplanted, he seized the rightful place, and then he took away the birthright and the blessing. And both of those words, both in English and in Hebrew, sound very similar. We just want to touch on this in passing. God will not be called Yahweh on a regular basis until the burning bush in Exodus 3 when Moses is in the desert. And God will say to Moses, I made myself known to, and we're going to call them the patriarchs, as El Shaddai. And El is your stem root for God. And it's either the God above the mountains, the God who is strong, the God who is powerful. And the patriarchs are primarily going to refer to our Father in heaven as El Shaddai. And as you read through Scripture, we will receive more and more revelation about the nature of God. This under number 3, the mother and son's plot of deception was discovered. So 2 reasons seemed advantageous. Yes, he's planning to murder him. And this would allow Jacob to find a suitable wife in the area that Rebekah was from. And as we've noticed, 3:1, we've already mentioned this, the local Canaanite girls were just a source of grief to them. And then under 4, Jacob flees from the crisis. He helped to build between himself and his brother. And do you remember this is mentioned also at the end of the first chapter of John? That you will see angels ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. And Jesus refers back to this. This symbolically has kind of the visual impact of some of the images in like Revelation. And you kind of read that and think, okay, what would these images really look like? I don't get any sense that there was a sense of remorse in Jacob for what he has done, but he is at least paying a small price, his brother's anger, in fleeing from home. And here you are kind of, yes, we're going to go to the relatives, but he's actually running away from the trouble that he's caused. And it's just hard to imagine, here you are, fleeing away from what's happened. You've participated with mom in doing all of this. And then to have a vision like this while you're trying to sleep at night would just be something that I don't have words to describe it. It would have to have such a huge impact on your life. In other words, I'm confident the last thing he is thinking is going to happen is to get a vision from God because of all the stuff that just recently happened, and he has been a willing participant in doing that. So, I'm in the middle of 4. Even though a fugitive in a strange land, Jacob learned that heaven was not far off. God was desirous of calling the wanderer to fellowship with himself. The angels ascending and descending suggest that the way to fellowship with God is open to all who will avail himself of his grace. And these 3 things, the land, the descendants, all of these will be blessed. And when he awakes, 4:2 at the bottom, God is present. He sets up a stone as a pillar. He calls the name of the place Bethel. And again, most of you know this, every time we have El in a Hebrew name, it's something to do with God. Daniel, God is strong. Ezekiel, it just happens over and over again. So Bethel is the house of God. And if God protects him, he will serve him. And let's use Moses' word later, tithe, even though it's not given as a commandment. He promises to give God 1/10 of what he has in the future. So on the last page, a couple of highlights. The first mention of giving 1/10 is back with Abraham and Melchizedek. And the Hebrew writer is going to play on this and say, you know, even Aaron and Levi, the priests, are in the body of their forefathers. But the first example we have of this giving of a tenth goes all the way back with Abram and Melchizedek, and an expression of gratitude and recognition of God's blessing. Then here's number 6. Like Moses at the burning bush, remember, take off your shoes, you're on holy ground. Jacob didn't know that God Almighty El Shaddai was present where he spent the night. And only after God appeared to him, and he thinks of this place as the gate of heaven. And you just stop and think, this would just have to have such an amazing impact on his mind and his thinking while he's running away. Down the road, 20 years later, upon his return from Haran, he arrives again at Bethel, Genesis 35:6. He built an altar to the Lord because there God revealed himself to him when he fled from his brother. And this is to their credit. Whether it's Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob, you can follow whether these 3 men lived, because if they were at any place for any period of time, they built an altar. And that was just very much a part of the expression. But here's number 7, and part of this goes over to next week. God's purposes and plans sometimes work through the strength and weaknesses of his people, and at times God's eternal plan works in spite of the human weaknesses of those he called. So I'd like for us to think about this for next week, because we'll do one more lesson on Jacob, and then we'll head toward the family that's going to become Israel. How different is the character and the response of these men to God during their lives? And I'm thinking of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Lord willing, I'd like for us just to take a few moments next week and just think, can we call it kind of a character assessment? And each of them are going to have various strengths. And I want us just to kind of stop and think they're different in different ways. They're unique. But what are some of the character strengths that are a part of the guys who are described in that sense? And how would you describe the faith and the character of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? So we're going to jump ahead. Roughly 500 years, at least from Abraham to Moses, is 500 years. And God appears in the same way the dream of Bethel was a surprise to Jacob. It wasn't something he anticipated. He didn't know, oh, God's going to be here. I still just try to imagine, when I think of someone who's been a shepherd in the wilderness as long as Moses is, he's deeply tanned. I mean, he's the outdoorsman at this point in time. And here you are just minding your own business and taking care of life and these sheep. And then you look up and you see this bush that's on fire that doesn't get consumed. And then you get closer and closer, and then the voice comes out. And I would just feel, hair on the back of my neck or chills coming, because you've been out here in this desert. And the contrast between being the son of Pharaoh's daughter in the opulence and gold of the palaces of Egypt, and then 40 years later, it's like, oh, my life's just been wasted. And yet God's equipping him to actually lead the people into that very place. So he's there both in presence. Can I use the term getting in shape? This is the guy at the burning bush is a whole different guy that comes out as the prince of Pharaoh's daughter coming out of Egypt. And God's equipping him through day-to-day life for things that he would never understand. And so God speaks to a fugitive from the law who is working as a lowly shepherd in a desert land. And what does God say? Exodus 3:14. I am who I am. Could also be I am what I am, or I will be what I will be. And God said, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. And God said to Moses, say to the people of Israel, and again, we've been in Egypt 400 years. Yahweh, the Lord, the God of your fathers, and I'm always amazed, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. Yes, sir.
So, Isaac believes he's on the way out, and that's why he, tells, he lives another 40 years.